Louis Armstrong was in his dressing room at the New Orleans Municipal Auditorium on a humid August night in 1959, getting ready for a sold-out show when someone knocked on his door with news that changed everything. A young nurse from the charity hospital's Negro Children's Ward was asking to see him. She was crying. Louis's manager told her to come back later, after the show. But Louis heard the crying through the door and said 5 words that his manager would never forget. "Bring her in right now." What that nurse told Louis in the next 3 minutes made him do something that shocked everyone. He canceled the concert, walked out on 2,000 paying customers, and spent the next 6 hours doing something that didn't make headlines but saved 47 children's lives. This is the story of the night Louis Armstrong proved that being a legend isn't about the applause you get. It's about what you do when nobody's watching and the stakes are life and death. It was August 22nd, 1959. New Orleans, Louisiana. Louis Armstrong was 58 years old and at the absolute peak of his fame. He'd been playing trumpet and singing for over 40 years. He'd invented jazz as America knew it. His gravelly voice and that golden trumpet had made him the most recognizable musician on the planet. He played for kings, for presidents, for sold-out crowds around the world. He was called Satchmo, Ambassador Satch. He was America's musical diplomat. When Louis Armstrong walked into a room, the whole world smiled. But Louis had never forgotten where he came from. New Orleans, the poorest neighborhoods, the streets where black folks struggled just to survive. Louis had grown up in that world, raised by his grandmother. So poor he'd had to sing on street corners for pennies. So poor he'd gone to a boys' home where they'd given him his first trumpet. He'd clawed his way up from nothing. And now, decades later, when he came home to New Orleans, he never forgot the people still living in that nothing. That night's concert was a big deal. The Municipal Auditorium, 2,000 seats, sold out weeks in advance. Tickets were expensive. This wasn't a show for poor folks. This was for the white establishment, the wealthy, the people who could afford to see Louis Armstrong in a nice venue with proper seats and air conditioning. Louis's manager, Joe Glazer, had worked hard to book this show. Good money, great venue, the kind of booking that reinforced Louis's status as a world-class entertainer. Louis was in his dressing room, warming up his trumpet, going through his pre-show routine. He was wearing his tuxedo. His handkerchief was folded in his pocket. His trumpet was polished to a mirror shine. In 30 minutes, he'd walk out on that stage and make 2,000 people forget their troubles for 2 hours. That's what he did. That's who he was. Then came the knock, timid, hesitant. Joe Glazer opened the door. Standing there was a young black woman in a nurse's uniform. She was maybe 25 years old. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She was twisting her hands together nervously. "I'm sorry to bother Mr. Armstrong. I know he's about to perform, but She started crying again. Couldn't finish the sentence. Joe was already shaking his head. Mr. Armstrong has a show in 25 minutes. Whatever it is, it'll have to wait." But Louis had heard the knock, heard the voice. He called out from inside. "Who is it, Joe?" Joe sighed. "A nurse, Louis. Wants to talk to you. I told her after the show." Louis appeared in the doorway. He looked at the young woman, saw the tears, saw the desperation. "Come in, honey. What's wrong?" The nurse walked in, still crying. Louis gestured to a chair. "Sit down. Take a breath. Tell me what's happening." The nurse sat, took a shaky breath. "Mr. Armstrong, my name is Dorothy Williams. I work at Charity Hospital, the Negro Children's Ward." Louis nodded. He knew Charity Hospital, the public hospital that served black folks who couldn't afford private care. "What's happening at the ward, Dorothy?" Dorothy wiped her eyes. "The city's cutting funding. They're closing the children's ward in 2 weeks. 47 children are in that ward right now. Sick children, some with pneumonia, some with polio complications, some with tuberculosis. If the ward closes, they'll have nowhere to go. The white hospitals won't take them. The private black hospitals are full. These children will be sent home to die." Louis's face went very still. "How much money do they need?" Dorothy shook her head. "It's not just money. It's $15,000 to keep the ward open for another year. But even if we had that, the city won't change their mind. They've already made the decision. They say it's about budget cuts." But everyone knows the truth. They don't think Negro children are worth saving. Louis looked at Joe, then back at Dorothy. $15,000. Dorothy nodded. That's what the administrator said. But Mr. Armstrong, I didn't come here to ask you for money. I know that's too much. I heard you were in town. I heard you grew up poor here. I thought maybe if you knew what was happening, maybe you could tell somebody. Maybe someone would listen to you. Louis stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the New Orleans night. Joe was watching him nervously. Louis, the show starts in 20 minutes. We've got 2,000 people out there. Louis didn't turn around. How far is Charity Hospital from here? Dorothy looked confused. About 20 minutes, but... Louis turned around. Joe, cancel the show. Joe's face went white. What? Louis, are you crazy? We can't cancel. These people pay good money. The venue will sue us. Louis's voice was calm but firm. Cancel it. Give them refunds. Reschedule. I don't care, but I'm not performing tonight. Joe was starting to panic. Louis, this is crazy. You can't just walk out on a sold-out show because... Louis cut him off. Those are children, Joe. Dying children. And you want me to stand on a stage and smile while that's happening 20 minutes away? Joe tried a different approach. Louis, it's terrible. It really is. But what can you do tonight? Give Dorothy the money after the show. You can visit the hospital tomorrow, but right now you have a commitment. Louis shook his head. The commitment is to do the right thing. And the right thing is to go to that hospital right now. Louis looked at Dorothy. Take me to those children. Dorothy's eyes went wide. Mr. Armstrong, you don't have to. Louis smiled. That famous Louis Armstrong smile. Honey, I know I don't have to, but those kids need to know somebody cares about them. And they need music. Sick kids always need music. Come on, let's go. Louis grabbed his trumpet case, took off his tuxedo jacket and bow tie, put on a regular shirt. Dorothy was crying again. I can't believe you're doing this. Louis put his hand on her shoulder. Believe it. Now let's go before Joe has a heart attack. They took Louis's car. Louis drove. Dorothy gave directions. Joe sat in the back seat, holding his head in his hands, probably calculating how much money they were losing. The drive took 18 minutes. Charity Hospital was an old building, worn, underfunded. The Negro ward was on the 3rd floor. They walked up stairs that hadn't been painted in years, down hallways that smelled like antiseptic in desperation. The children's ward was one large room with about 50 beds. Most were occupied, children ranging from maybe 4 years old to teenagers. Some were sleeping, some were coughing, some just stared at the ceiling with hollow eyes. Nurses moved between the beds, doing what they could with limited supplies and no budget. When Louis walked in, nobody noticed at first. Then one of the older nurses looked up. Her eyes went wide. Is that? Dorothy nodded. It's Louis Armstrong. He came to see the children. Within seconds, every nurse in the ward was staring. Then one of them ran to tell the children who were awake. Louis Armstrong is here. Satchmo is here. Some of the kids sat up in their beds. Others were too weak, but every eye in that room turned to Louis. Louis stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at all those sick children in those old beds with thin sheets. His eyes were wet. Then he smiled, opened his trumpet case, and walked into the ward. Hello, babies. I hear you've been having a rough time. Well, Satchmo's here now, and we're gonna make you feel better. He started at the first bed. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, rail thin, with huge eyes. What's your name, little man? The boy's voice was barely a whisper. Marcus. Louis set down his trumpet and sat on the edge of the bed. Marcus, that's a strong name. You feeling strong today, Marcus? The boy shook his head. Louis gently took his hand. That's okay. Some days we don't feel strong. But you know what? You're stronger than you think, because you're still here. You're still fighting. That takes real strength. He spent 5 minutes with Marcus, holding his hand, talking quietly, making him smile. Then he moved to the next bed, and the next. For the first hour, Louis didn't play a single note. He just talked to the children, one by one, learning their names, hearing their stories, holding hands, giving hugs, making them laugh with his gravelly voice and his warm smile. The nurses were crying. Joe was crying. Dorothy was crying. These children who'd been forgotten by the city, who'd been told they weren't worth saving, were being visited by one of the most famous men in the world, and he was treating them like they mattered, like they were important, like they were worth his time. After visiting every child, Louis finally picked up his trumpet. "All right, babies, now Satchmo's gonna play for you, but I need you to do something for me. I need you to close your eyes and imagine something beautiful. Can you do that?" 47 children closed their eyes, and Louis Armstrong started to play. He played "What a Wonderful World." He played "When the Saints Go Marching In." He played "Hello, Dolly" and "La Vie en Rose." He played for an hour straight, and in that ward, magic happened. Children who'd been crying stopped crying. Children who'd been in pain forgot their pain. Children who'd given up started to hope again. Because music does that. Music heals, and Louis Armstrong's music could heal souls. When he finished playing, Louis set down his trumpet. "All right, babies, I have to talk to some grown-ups now, but I promise you something. This ward is not closing. You're not going anywhere. You're gonna stay right here and get better. You hear me?" The children nodded. They believed him. When Louis Armstrong promised something, you believed it. Louis walked to the administrator's office. The administrator, a tired-looking white man in his 50s, was shocked to see Louis Armstrong standing in his doorway. "Mr. Armstrong, I heard you were here. This is quite unexpected." Louis sat down without being invited. "How much to keep this ward open?" The administrator blinked. "I'm sorry," Louis repeated slower. "How much money do you need to keep the Negro children's ward open?" The administrator shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Armstrong, it's not that simple. The city has made budget cuts. We don't have a choice." Louis's voice hardened. "I didn't ask about the city. I asked how much money you need to keep it open." The administrator hesitated. $15,000. That's what it costs to run the ward for a year. Staff, medicine, equipment. "But Mr. Armstrong, even if I had that money, the city..." Louis pulled out his checkbook. "The city can go to hell." He wrote a check, handed it to the administrator. The administrator looked at it. His hands started shaking. $25,000. Louis had written a check for $25,000, more than his fee for tonight's canceled concert, more than most people made in 5 years. The administrator looked up. "Mr. Armstrong, this is... I can't..." Louis stood up. "You can and you will. That's $15,000 for this year, $10,000 for improvements, new beds, better medicine, whatever these children need. And if the city has a problem with it, you tell them to call me." Stories like this one deserve to be remembered. The moments when legends proved what really mattered. The acts of grace that saved lives. If you want to hear more stories about the people who shaped an era, the sacrifices nobody filmed, and the humanity that changed everything, this channel tells those stories. Because these aren't just tales about famous people, they're lessons about what we're here for. Louis spent another hour at the hospital, talking to nurses, talking to doctors, making sure the money would be used properly. Then he went back to the ward one more time. Most of the children were sleeping now, but he walked through quietly, touching heads, whispering blessings. When he left, Dorothy walked him to his car. "Mr. Armstrong, I don't know how to thank you." Louis smiled. "Don't thank me, honey. Thank those children. They reminded me what's important." The canceled concert made the newspapers. Louis Armstrong walks out on sold-out show. The articles were critical, called him unprofessional, said he'd disappointed fans. But Louis didn't care. He never publicly explained why he'd canceled. Never told anyone about the hospital. Never sought credit. Years later, a reporter asked him about it. Louis just said, "Sometimes you gotta do what's right instead of what's convenient." The Negro Children's Ward at Charity Hospital stayed open. All 47 children recovered. The ward operated for another 15 years before integration finally allowed Black children to be treated in the main hospital. Dorothy Williams became the head nurse. She put a photograph of Louis Armstrong on the wall of the ward. Under it, a plaque that said, "The man who cared when nobody else would." Louis Armstrong died in 1971. He was 69 years old. The world mourned. Presidents eulogized him. Musicians celebrated his legacy. But in New Orleans, 47 adults who'd been sick children in 1959 remembered something else. They remembered the night a legend canceled a concert to sit with them, to hold their hands, to play his trumpet and make them believe they mattered. Several of them came to his funeral, stood together, cried together. One of them, Marcus, who'd been that 6-year-old in the first bed, said it best. Satchmo saved my life that night, not just because he paid for the ward, but because he made me feel like I was worth saving. And once you feel that, you fight harder to live. That's the Louis Armstrong story that should be told. Not just the entertainer who made the world smile, not just the trumpet player who invented jazz, but the man who heard a nurse crying and canceled everything to help dying children. The man who wrote a check for more money than most people would see in a lifetime. The man who spent 6 hours in a hospital ward because sick kids needed music more than rich folks needed entertainment. Louis Armstrong had a choice that night: perform and collect his money, or help children who couldn't help themselves. He chose the children, without hesitation, without publicity, without expectation of thanks, because that's what heroes do. They see people hurting and they help, and that's why we still remember his name.